Hi, it's John Glynn. I'm going to be looking at the healing brush today on Photoshop Elements number 20. As using a PC, I'm just using standard kit that one would buy with a PC, so nothing special, just a mouse as usual. So I'll click on the healing brush. It's the one here that I've clicked on in the toolbox. It looks like an elastoplast. Put your mouse over it and it should say spot healing brush tool, and when you click on that you'll get choices at the bottom of your monitor related to the options that you get for that particular tool. I'm using a black and white picture, but you could use a color picture just as easily. The black and white is just because it's the most damaged picture I've got, really, or one of them, so it can show what it can do relatively easily. Now for this particular tool, when I put my mouse over the top of the picture, you'll see that it's a circular brush that I get, little white one. If I need to make it bigger or smaller, you have a slider at the bottom, again in your tool area at the bottom where it says what options you get. Set the brush sizes on a slider. The bigger the number, the bigger the brush. Okay, and obviously if it's too big, you go back down and make it smaller, or you can use your brackets on your keyboard. If you've got brackets on the keyboard, the left hand bracket makes the brush smaller, the right hand bracket makes it bigger. Now to work on anything to do with this, it's best to zoom in, because any changes you make to a picture are more obvious if you try and do it at this form of magnification. If you zoom in and work on a picture and then print it out at normal size, or view it at a normal sort of print size, you're less likely to notice that you made any changes. So for zooming in, I'm just going to use the control on my keyboard, control button, control key and the plus. Hold control key and plus sign and you zoom in. You can move around by just using the sliders on the side, or I've got scroll on my mouse to move around, and you've got that down here. You can also put navigator up from window navigator, and that will give you another window on the right hand side, which allows you to move this box around. Put your mouse inside the red box, hold down the left mouse key, you can quickly move around your photo. This particular tool, the spot healing brush tool. Okay, so let's go back to that. If I click on my picture, it will try and pick up tonal ranges which are similar in the area, which are similar to the thing I'm trying to hide. So for simple spot, dust, anything like that, little objects on your picture that you want to move, it might be as good as anything. Now it does make it go out of focus slightly. Okay, I am using a soft edged brush, so if you go down to brushes again at the bottom of your monitor here, well, below your picture, you get brush types, and I use a soft edge brush. The soft edged brush blends in your effect, what you're doing with the brush tool, into the background. If you use a hard edged brush, and I'll make that a bit bigger as well so you can see it, if I use a hard edged brush, you can end up where it will leave a line, and it's not too bad on this particular picture, but it may leave an obvious pattern. So hard edges are generally used sparingly, because you can end up seeing the edge of the work that you've been doing, while a soft edged brush hopefully will blend it all in, and be less obvious to the eye that you've been working on it. Okay, that's the basic principle. Sometimes it's more obvious than others, but it's a matter of jumping between them and seeing what works. Now I've got content aware clicked here. You may find its proximity match will be the one that's on automatically, proximity match, and that will just try and blend it into something that's local to you in the area of your picture. Content aware might try and pick up other aspects of the photo and blend it in. Now obviously sometimes it works better than others, so if I undo that, make the brush smaller, and possibly even zoom in more, would be more accurate. So all the way you're trying to improve or reduce the likelihood of the if I try that again, take it out, this time I'm going to use proximity match and see whether that's any better. And content aware was the other one. It's a matter of trying them, jumping between them, and see which one is the most effective for what you're trying to achieve in repairing or reducing the likelihood of any obvious damage to your picture or anything in the picture you no longer want. Sometimes it works better than others, and obviously if it's to do with just repairs, as I'm doing here, it's not to try and put it back to what it was the day it was actually taken, because it's an old photo and it's meant to still look old, but it is to give you a picture which is less damaged in general and make it look less like it's been badly managed or anything like that. And maybe content aware would be, I don't know, try on this one. It's not necessarily the best one to, it's a matter of trying them out, just get a feel for the particular sort of effect or what you're trying to do on your photo, and jumping around, trying out the different options. There is another option here, create texture. That's a weird one. Create texture. I'll do create texture, and it leaves a form of texture behind. It may not be too obvious on a black and white image. I'll try it somewhere, maybe on his face. It leaves a texture like a pattern, so that has to be a little bit more carefully used. Okay, so unlikely to want to create a texture in any way, shape or form. So proximity match or content aware are probably the two you'd use in this particular tool. There is also a healing brush tool. The healing brush tool works in the same or very similar way, not exactly the same, but a similar way as the cloning. Okay, so you would choose an area you're going to copy. I'm holding down my Alt key, the Alt key on my keyboard, and if I keep it held down and click once with the left mouse key, I'm telling the computer to copy this part of the photo, and I'm going to move it to another part of the photo. Okay, now whatever the crosshair sees will be copied across, so you do have to be a bit careful. So it's the kind of thing that you may have to work on quite a bit, and it's basically working along similar lines to the clone brush. It takes sampled area rather than a pattern, so it's from the area that I've sampled. Normal it's going to be just a normal, but you can try other things as well. You may find that trying multiply or screen or darken or lighten might hide it better. Clone overlay, it's just how much opacity. So maybe if I pick up another part of the picture, it kind of puts a similar texture in. It's doing it bit by bit. It's not actually doing it 100%. It's not. So I've done like a lower opacity rather than 100% opacity. If I have it 100%, it means it hides it completely, or tries to. If a lower opacity, you can see some of the original or background stuff coming through as well. So it's a matter of trying them out and just see what they actually do, and whether or not you find the effect is in any way, shape or form useful to you. If you find that it does work, then use it. If you find it doesn't work, then don't use it. I mean, basically that's what you're doing here. It's just trying things out for your particular picture, because each of your pictures are going to be different. So there's not necessarily going to be one way that you're going to show on all of them. Okay, just be aware of that. Sample layers, I've only got one layer. On my on the right hand side of my monitor is my layers palette. I've only got the background, so there's sampling all layers is irrelevant to me. Aligned and non-aligned or whatever, just leave that. It's fine as it is. So basically it's just a matter of practicing it. It's doing it slowly. Remember to zoom in on the areas you're going to work on. When you zoom back out, hopefully the bits that you've worked on are kind of hidden and it's not too obvious you've worked on them, and basically you will always know you've worked on that picture, but other people won't be looking for anything in particular, and by just reducing the damage might be enough. Remember, if you zoom in, the more you zoom in, the more accurate any repairs are that you're going to do with your photograph. So you can actually end up zooming right in. You may have to redo the size of your brush when you're doing this, because the more you zoom in, the bigger your brush becomes, as it's related to the number of pixels you've got. So as you zoom in, you'll have to reduce the size of the brush. As you zoom out, the brush will effectively become smaller as a portion of your picture. Okay, so be aware of that. That's a little brush there. If I just zoom in, the brush becomes bigger in relationship to my photograph. So you may find you've got to reduce the size of the brush to continue working with it. And then when you zoom out, you get an idea of the work that you've done. Now you, as I said, will always know that you've worked on it. Other people aren't necessarily going to be looking for it, so it may be not so obvious to anybody else. Okay, but just slowly work around pictures. This particular brush, the healing brush, the basic one, the spot healing brush, is very good for removing dust and odd marks in your photographs. So do have a look. It doesn't have to just be done on black and white pictures. It works perfectly well in colour as well. So have a go with that little brush, and it gives you an indication as to how the clone brush will work as well. So those two kind of help each other in learning the process. Okay, thank you for watching.